Hello everyone! We're happy to welcome you on Talent Learning YouTube channel. With this event, we open a series of public talks in which we invite speakers to discuss exciting and very useful IT topics. Our topic today is a feature interview for QA engineers, and our guests and speakers are Kevin and Vladimir. So, Kevin is a senior QA engineer with plenty of experience in IT. So, Kevin, it will be great if you're going to tell us some words about yourself and about your background.
Yep. Well, I've been working with IT for the past 11 years already. Specifically in QA, it will be something around like 8 years. So I started as a developer, then I moved to a QA position. And from then on, it's just been the QA all my life. So like working with backend technologies, also front end automation, services like microservices. So very thoroughly, like I always try to keep myself updated with conferences, lectures. So, and I'm working in Estonia in Bali as a senior QA engineer.
Great. So thank you very much for your introduction. So our second speaker is Vladimir. He is also a senior QA engineer, and he is an academic advisor at Talent Learning. So Vladimir, you're most welcome to take the floor.
Hi, everyone. Yes, my experience as well, about 15 years in IT and about 8+ years as a quality assurance specialist. I started just an engineer and was working in different areas. And as quality assurance engineer, I was working as a full stack for backend, front end, mobile, automation, all the specific stuff we can have here. And thank you for this public talk. I think it would be interesting to discuss this topic.
Perfect. So Kevin and Vladimir both conduct QA interviews, and today we're going to discuss how these interviews go and what parts are included. Also, we're going to review some useful details and tips. So I would like to go to the next slide, please. I'd like to quote the disclaimer and say, the information in this interview is for general purposes only and express the speaker's personal views. The opinion expressed by speakers doesn't reflect the employee policy. I suppose that it's very important to say, as different people have different opinions, and we just want to share ours. So today's agenda. So we're going to discuss how the interview goes. We will have a look on some hard skills and soft skills because both of them are very important. And we're going to review the assessments and some parts of the home tasks as well. Yes, and the first step is interview flow. So I believe it's a very interesting topic. And Kevin, could you please give us a couple of details about this step?
Yep. During the interview flow, of course, we have someone that contacts the candidate that is going to be interviewed. So pretty much when we approach the candidate, he knows already, he or she knows already a couple of things about the company, but then we start up like asking just some simple questions, introducing the company, introducing ourselves, just like a warm up, and then we start to ask some theoretical questions that goes from like either how would this person behave in a team as a QA, or it might be like technical questions as well. What else? I may say that we go from a very wide range of things that are being asked because it's important to know each person's profile. So in the theory is where we can see if the person is more like a person that likes to work more with the business side, is if it's a person that likes automation and technical stuff. And then from there, like when we decided that we are okay with the theory questions, we move to some practice. in practice, in my opinion, is it's not for the person to be like nervous or something. It's not, we're not trying to get this person and like, or do you know this or do you know that? No, we're just like trying to understand what are the experiences of this person when this person is trying to achieve with knowledge that this person has. So usually there are like some exercises if needed for the current for the job ad or for the role that is necessary to have like API questions and some exercises like going through some methods or response codes or whatever more technical stuff. And from then on, like once we are satisfied with it, we usually like answer a couple questions that the candidate has, and we pretty much wrap up the interview. So in general, that's like straightforward flow. I guess it works for every single engineering role, not only for QA.
Great. And so interesting question regarding the theoretical part. So how do you choose what kind of questions to ask?
Usually it's not only, we don't have specific, let's say, if like specific for that person, we have like some thorough template questions that we have, but we also like, we improvise a little bit when we know that the person is directed to that point of view or something like that. So for that, we discuss not only technical stuff, but also like behavioral stuff as well. So
okay,
that's a cool part of the theory, because just like you told us before, like not only hard skills are important, but also soft skills. So we really love to understand how the person will act in a Scrum team.
Great.
So yeah, the questions are pretty much like, we have a couple technical questions that we discussed before, like previously discussed with other people. Then that's pretty much what the current role requires. If this role is requiring something regarding automation, this interview will be more focused on automation. If it's going to be more manual, like we'll cover much more manual stuff or business stuff. So that's how it goes.
Yes, perfect.
And on my side, yeah.
Yeah, great. And by the way, have you ever had a candidate who weren't able to answer any theoretical questions?
Well, the majority of them, they were able to answer like 70–80% of the theoretical questions. Sometimes it's like the tension of the moment of being in an interview, like with multiple people looking at you, and the person forgets like a simple thing. That happens a lot. Like we are trying just to extract a little piece of information, like testing design techniques or types of testing, and well, maybe in the moment the person is already experienced on it, but maybe it's nervous a little bit about the interview, and well, ended up forgetting about something. That's very usual. But we as interviewers, we usually try to lead the person for that specific answer, right? So if you're talking about regression or regression testing or whatever, we usually say, well, this type of testing that we're talking about, it's usually a test that's going to happen by the end of the sprint or by the end of something where we like go back and go through the entire batch of stories that we're releasing or something like that. So, well, we lead the person for that specific answer, because sometimes it's just the way that the person uses this type of testing is not the way that like it's not the regular way, let's say. So that's the reason we try to lead the person for the answer correctly.
Okay, perfect. And for example, what kind of practical tasks do you usually give to your candidates? So is it a kind of, of home task, or you usually ask them for online coding if it's automation position, for example?
Well, for automation positions, usually we have not a live coding session, because I don't think that is, in my opinion, I don't think it's a good approach to fully understand this person potential, because nobody like works with someone like looking at you typing stuff, and so that doesn't work. That's not the reflection of your daily activities. So, well, usually we ask the person to, well, we send a home task where the person will like work with some specific let's say languages or microservices, APIs, and things that are already asked on this home task, and we just ask the person to do like a simple tasks to cover like not a lot of things, but just to see if he or she is like someone that can understand code, if this is something related to automation. Otherwise, if it's something more like business or operational or analytical role that we are looking for, it's much more like we can pretty much have an essay. We can have this person can just go through all of the context that we gave, and like write. We have questions that we ask, like how would you do this? How many test cases? How do you prioritize them? So well, it's I would say that that really depends on what we are looking for. So it could be like an essay, it could be a coding task, it could be just like writing a couple answers for us, and that's it.
Okay, yes, perfect. Thank you very much. Yes, we're going to discuss home task in detail a little bit later. So now we're going to discuss and review a next step. So Vladimir, please. So I believe it's right time to you.
Yes, so warm-up is very important part of interview. During this part, candidates start feeling more comfortable, because it is not good practice to start right from the beginning to ask questions, no matter regarding theory or practice. First, we need to find the contact with person. Very important to tell a little bit about our company. What is our processes regarding QA? What require this position? And as Kevin told before, it is very important because it depends on position. We can ask different set of questions. For example, for those who are not pretend to be on automation one and pretend to be somewhere between analytic or QA, it's very important to ask behavioral questions or analytical tasks, and this is require this position. And our idea here is to deliver this idea to the person and find out is it suitable for him and is it suitable for us. And of course, the very important part here is the introduction of candidate. In this step, candidate describes his experience or her experience, talk about what kind of quality assurance activities she has or he has, and what type of testing was done. So for us, it is indicator what kind of questions can we ask, because if candidate did not use mobile testing, so for us, no reason to ask these questions more deeper.
Okay, great. And what do you usually expect from candidate intro? Because I believe it's always, it can be a long story. So if a candidate has plenty of experience, so he may decide personally where to start, or you usually choose the period of time what you want to hear about. So how do you usually choose the intro? What kind of intro you want to hear?
The main information. No need to describe in details about the projects. So what important for me is to find out what type of testing, what tools and technologies were used, what candidate familiar with. For me, it's not relevant what exactly was the project about, very specific details. Important thing is domain, like financials, transportation maybe, and gaming, because it is relevant for different positions. But the tools are quite different for all area, especially for quality assurance engineer. And so this is expected to be clear, and the detailed information regarding the quality assurance related stuff.
Okay, yes, great. Thank you very much. I believe we can move on. So, yes, theory, as we already discussed about the theoretical part, it's really important as well. But Vladimir, could you please add some information and give us a little bit detail about this part?
Mm-hmm. So theory is a fundamental of every area as well. Theory exists for quality assurance engineers, and every education, every training starts from theoretical fundament. So here, what is expected to know what types of testing candidate knows, what are test design techniques, and test documentation, of course, because test documentation is a thing that candidates use on a daily basis. Test cases or checklist, candidate prepare this stuff every day, and this is what candidates leave after his job. So this is important because the test documentation is not just a thing that candidate works on himself. It is documentation that can be used later for different project and his colleagues, and it is very important to know what kind of test documentation can be done at every stage of project.
Yeah, and we usually, I'm sorry, and then we usually talk about like how would you write a bug or something like that, because it's very important for the person to understand that not everybody knows what is this, why is this bug happening, or the way to simulate this bug to reproduce it. So the thing is, this part of theory is, I would say for a QA is one of the most important parts, just like Vladimir said, that these things remains in the company if you leave, or remains in the project if you leave. So if you have a clear bug description, if you have clear test cases, if you have, it's something that everybody can benefit from. Like in counterpart from the practice, which is something that you're doing like on a daily basis, or testing something like here, testing there. Test documentation, test design, and test the classification and like applying testing types is like one of the most important things for a QA, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And I wonder whether the theoretical questions are different for juniors and middles or seniors candidates, or they're the same. So, yes.
Well, I wouldn't say, yeah, probably like if you're trying to interview like a mid-level, but like / senior QA, you are going to ask some more in-depth questions in terms of, let's say, priority of test cases, handling a bulk of test cases, or like, let's say, well, I have all of this in my hands, like 2,000 test cases. I need those tests by the end of the month. Like, how would you do it? These are kind of questions that usually people that already worked in the industry, in the area of QA, are most used to handle, like these kind of questions and this kind of pressure that comes from above. And usually junior QAs, this is not maybe a type of question like that we would ask, let's say.
Okay, yes, perfect.
Just an example.
Yeah. That's right. Great. Vladimir, would you like something to add?
There is no idea to ask what are mandatory fields from candidate who pretend to be a middle or senior, but what I expect from candidate to understand from his answer that he already knows when to apply different types of testing, and when better to use one or another type of test documentation. So we can retrieve from the answer different graduates of his answer, and then it will help us to provide a right assessment. So
perfect. But probably you could recommend something for junior candidates. So as at our school, we have a lot of junior manual QA testers, and probably you can recommend something to them. So what should they prepare for their first interview from the theoretical side?
Yeah, of course, candidates should know what test types they know, what types of classification can be applied, at least 2 or 3 test design techniques, and when to apply them and how to apply them. And of course, mandatory fields of test documentation, like what is the checklist, how to prepare bug report. Questions like test plan can be asked as well, but sometimes we ask these questions middle or senior QA, as well as test strategy, because this is test documentation, not for junior position.
Okay, yes, great. So thank you very much. I believe we can move on. Yes, so next part is practice. So Kevin, could I ask you to give some details about this part?
Yeah, in terms of practice, if we are talking about like the first topic, which is API, we probably will ask questions about HTTP codes, response codes, methods, like REST protocols, SOAP, all of these things that are important for like to have a very solid candidate that let's say once this candidate like is able to answer to those questions, we do believe that it could be quite suitable, because all of these like API, web and mobile, they're all part of the same. Usually, like most of the companies, they use all of them in the end. So if you want to be like a complete QA engineer, you probably will have to understand like all of them in terms of APIs or web and mobile. In terms of web, if you're going like we might be talking about automation, but also manual stuff. If you're going for API testing in this case, we might apply some dummy tests, not dummy tests, but with dummy APIs, with just a couple examples and asking a little bit about payloads, authorization headers, or whatever. That goes with APIs. In terms of web, if we are talking about automation, we're going to talk about frameworks, automation frameworks that is applicable, like Selenium. If the person in practice also, like if the person has knowledge about tools like Cucumber or Gherkin, all of this like really practical stuff, because now we moved out from theory. That means that we really want to know if the person has hands-on experience on those tools. Just like I told you, the same with mobiles. If the person has experience in Appium, let's say, which is a good framework for automation, so or Source Labs, things like that. So to be a complete engineer, you pretty much for a senior role, I would say you have to, like your domain, you have to be solid on all of these 3 topics. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Perfect. And Kevin, could you tell me whether these 3 options have the same level of difficulty, if we can divide it in that way?
I wouldn't say that's more. I would say it's something like if the person has affinity with more web stuff or API stuff. Usually, when we're talking about API, we're talking about much more backend activities, and when it's web, well, we pretty much can talk about like Selenium or UI stuff, which is also cool. A lot of engineers like to work with that, but also, well, let's say if you're having like something like Postman, you can learn like pretty easy to operate it, to understand the APIs and stuff. So I wouldn't say there's a there's a learning curve from all of them. But if we have to, like, in my opinion, if you have to rank them in a difficulty level, I would say that if you want to have a good backend automation framework, you have to learn a lot of APIs and REST services and microservices. And I do believe that that's the one that is more challenging for QAs in general, that are not used to like learn right from the start about this architectural part.
Okay, great. So Vladimir, do you have something to add in this part?
Yes, because it is practical part of the interview. What is important for us here? How candidate think, and how candidate ask question, because normally this practical task requires additional information. And what's important for me, that candidate would like to have a detailed picture of the task, and don't hesitate and know how to ask additional questions, because I would like to provide tasks with kind of ambiguous state, and what I want to see how candidate works with this task. For example, if I want to see how candidate will test web part, I can give a sample of mockup, and would like candidate to ask me questions how these screens communicate with each other, what will, if I click this button, or what are requirements for every field. And talking about mobile, this is not really practical, but practical thing is using instruments. So I can ask questions regarding what instruments can be used for different type of mobile applications, when to use DevTools simulator or Android Studio. So this is a good example to see how candidate works in a real life.
So great. I guess we can continue with the next part. Yes, soft skills. When I'm talking to different junior candidates, they usually believe that soft skills are very simple. So they usually don't pay too much attention on soft skills, and they don't want to prepare for this part of the interview. But from my point of view, it's one of the most difficult. So, okay, yes, we know the technical side is difficult, and for some reasons, but soft skills are also important, and they're essential even for IT professions. And could you please comment and maybe highlight some very important soft skills that you usually pay attention? So yes, Kevin, could you please help me with this part, and yes, give some comments?
Usually we say that hard skills is something that we can learn, and soft skills is something that you're born with. Some people say that, but honestly, I don't think that I agree with that statement, because soft skills you always can learn. You always can talk to people, and you have possibility to learn, and not only hard skills. So one of the things that are most important things, one of the most important thing that we are looking for when you're searching for a candidate and accessing is teamwork, because a QA without teamwork is pretty much nothing, because the QAs are like alongside the developers, they're working to reach a common goal. So if you don't have a teamwork, a very sharp ability to have a teamwork, a person that is good at teamwork, it's kind of hard to assess those. And for that, I would say that we can ask a couple questions like, let's put this scenario here. What would you do? Let's say, you found this issue, what would be your first step? Usually people say, I'm going to talk to the developer, but hold on. Of course, you have to talk to the developer later, but why don't you go through the whole problem, the whole issue, and assess and try to understand what's happening? So that's that links with communication as well, not teamwork, because you have to have a sharp communication, you have to have a good way on communicating with other other folks on your team. So for these two parts, I think is the most important thing that I would ask in an interview. And talking about analytics and problem solving is it's one of the most crucial abilities that a QA should have, which is a problem solving attitude. What I mean by that is like, okay, you're there to assure quality. Yeah, that's your role. But that doesn't mean that you will just find the bug or whatever and let it go to the other ones. Yeah, you can sit together and try to solve the issue with all the rest of your team. So like applying questions for this soft skills part, I guess it's a little bit hard for us as interviewers as well, but we try to do the best as we can, trying to ask like how would the person behave in such situation and try to like to catch the real intent and attitude of the person.
Yeah, so great. And could you tell me how soft skills, so actually, do they affect the decision? So they're really crucial for like your future work, but at the same time, all candidates wonder whether they're really important for the decision, for the result.
Indeed, yeah. I totally believe that like if a candidate lacks soft skills, and we can notice that by interviewing the person. Like we work with other QAs, we work in the industry, so we can see that when someone is not, let's say, really good at soft skills, when the person is not feeling comfortable with some questions and stuff. So definitely, indeed, yeah, it's something that impacts on decision making about having like a candidate in our company or not.
Okay, and could you please provide maybe several examples of questions, what you usually ask them during the interviews?
The first one that I usually like to do, me and Vladimir, we when we interview people, we usually share the responsibility of asking those questions, because we usually improvise on this part, because it's pretty much like a situational stuff. Where is this going? So, but the first question that I usually ask is, okay, you were there working, okay, fine, perfect day, perfect coffee, and you found a bug. What's the first step that you will take? That's my first question, because from then on, you can understand how will be the approach of the person to solve this issue, to find out why this bug is happening, what is the root cause, and apart from like what is the what would you do if you find a bug, but also let's say that you're having like pressure on your day-to-day of delivering you have a tight deadline and you have 15 tests to deliver in 2 hours or 15 hours, or but like some random numbers, and what will be your approach to the situation? If somebody says that, well, you don't need to test those, it's not necessary, what would you do? Like, would you follow what your leader says and risk losing your job maybe? Or you will be like towards, no, I'm gonna keep doing this quality stuff because I have to release this with quality. So it's a very delicate subject when we start to do this kind of questions, because sometimes like, well, where is this going? Sometimes people are ask themselves, why are you asking those questions? Because soft skills really matter in the end of the day.
Yes, that's so true. And probably you may have some tips for getting ready for this part of the interview. So
my personal tip is be yourself. Like, just be yourself. You don't have to pretend to be anybody else just to pleasant me or Vladimir. You can be yourself because that's the true you, your honest person. And stay calm. And of course, this comes with seniority. If you're starting with like interviewing a junior person, it will be a totally different soft skill assessment from a senior person. So you have to understand what is like your candidate level as well. But well, stay calm and be yourself. And if you haven't faced those situations before, it's something that try to put yourself in the other person's shoes, and well, and start from there.
Okay, but let's imagine the situation. So the candidate was very skilled at technical part, but soft skills were very weak. So what's going to be in that case?
Yeah, usually we interview more than just one candidate, but if that one was like specifically awesome, he's the top A guy that we found technically speaking, but he definitely sucks at soft skills. I'm sorry, but how would you be working with this guy? How would you see yourself working with this person if this person cannot have like a teamwork experience or expertise of will to be a team player? So sometimes it's even harder to work on the soft skills part. So that will be like a very impacting decision to make. It's hard at the same time, but it's clear, like I much rather have like someone that is really balanced between soft skills and hard skills than someone that is totally like 100% technical and lacking communication or analytics or teamwork, you know. And it's kind of hard to describe like what this person should do, but in the end, it's quite challenging to have to decide if you're going with this or that. So you have to analyze every point.
Thank you. Yes, great. I hope that our students will notice that soft skills are essential as well as hard skills. So great. And I think we can go next. So yes, the second part of our public talks is assessment. So Vladimir, I believe you can give us some information regarding this part. So please.
Okay, we discussed about soft skills and hard skills. We already get answers on our questions, and now it's a very interesting part to make an assessment, to prepare a feedback about candidate, and how can this thing be done? Very easy. We can save answers candidate, and we have kind of this table, and we have a gradation regarding every question, and later I can explain what I mean by this gradation on example. So depends on the answer. I can say this is answer for junior, like I just know theory and I don't have practice with this tool, or senior can answer that I know what it is, I know when to use this tool, when to use other tool, what are pros, what are cons. So this is the way how we can measure candidate in terms of hard skills, of course. And let's discuss an example. So here are just two typical questions. First is testing types. For even intern QA at least should heard something about these testing types, like what is functional testing, what is regressional. At least no more is expected from intern. For junior positions, better to know at least the difference between types and what are types exist. Regular middle candidate at least should know what are pros, cons, when to use this type, when to use other type, when we need to use, for example, load testing, when to use safety testing. And what is expected from senior knows all of the testing types, knows when to use all of these techniques, and can answer, for example, the term of testing parameter. This is not kind of the exact solution, but this answer can help us to evaluate the answer and make kind of gradation. Another example is REST API. So what is expected from junior just knows the theory, what is a REST, what is a protocol. Regular candidate at least should use a practical experience and know the tools like Postman, and senior candidates should demonstrate essential knowledge of this technology and use the advanced tools like CURL and other.
Great. And Kevin, would you like to add something to this part?
Yeah, I would say that this is a very good example and how to apply this on a day-to-day basis. But I wouldn't say this is a definite, like this is like definitive way to assess, because, well, there are different types of subjects that we'll be talking about. The answers are multiple, so this is like a way that it's a good way to at least roughly understand at what level this person is. And I do believe that in the end of the day, you want to, like, when you're being interviewed or when you are interviewing something, you really want to be very certain of who you're interviewing. So just like we were talking about soft skills before, we can measure at least the technical part, and this is a way that we can at least have some something that we can, a tactile way to be able to measure the performance or the answers. So yeah, it's a good one.
Perfect. Yes. So I guess we can continue with the last part, actually. So it's the home task. We have already touched this topic before. We discussed a little what kind of home task you usually give to your candidates, but we're going to discuss a little bit in details. So the second slide, please. So yes, there are, as I see, there are different types of home tasks. And of course, I believe it depends on a position you're looking for. So if it's automation or if it's manual position. And Vladimir, could you please give maybe some clarifications or details about these options?
Yes, first of all, home task is not mandatory, and not every position requires to do a home task. But if yes, home task can be different types and can be mixed. So it could be a short essay about the case. It could be test design tasks. So you're given with the description, and you should provide the design. What testing types you are going to use, what test design techniques you are going to apply for this task. It could be a case review, and as well, it could be coding task, because most positions require automation skills, and this is a good way to demonstrate this coding task. So we don't expect from candidates to be in a rush and provide the solution on the next day. So it is enough time usually to complete this task and even ask questions.
It was actually my second question. So how much time do you usually give to candidates?
So it could be 1 week normally, but good practice is to ask candidate, what is your estimation to complete this task? And it also good to see at the end if candidates was compliant with this estimation, and how candidate can evaluate and know what time is needed to complete this task and to be on time. Very important thing, of course.
Okay, yes. And so as we have already discussed, there are different, let's say, levels of candidates. And so I wonder whether these types of home tasks depended on the level of candidate, or mainly it depends on the position. So automation QA or manual QA. So yes, Vladimir.
For positions where automation experience is not expected and automation part of work is not needed, no need to ask coding interview. But for positions where analytical skills is crucial, we would like to see how candidate apply test design tasks, how candidate thinks. So short essay about the way of QA works is reasonable in this type of position.
Okay, yes, perfect. And as it is our final slide, so I want to ask you, or probably to ask you to give some tips for the junior QAs who are just starting their way in this wonderful field. So maybe you can recommend something for our students who are just on this first step. So maybe you can share some tips with them. How to get prepared for the interview, maybe what they should look before they go on an interview. So just some useful tips.
Yes, first of all, I would like to draw attention about this best practice for home task. First of all, you need to plan your time and be careful and accurate when you submitting your home task. It is very normal practice if a candidate asks a question. So if candidates knows a detailed picture of what is expected from him, it is for us, it is plus, of course. And at the final stage, to be on time is expected, of course, because if you fail the time you estimate before, it is not good for you. But it is not a big problem if you estimate that this task requires 4 days, and then 1 day before the final time, you can text that you need an additional time. This is okay. If you request 2 or 3 days additional time, it is really okay. But if you asked for 1 week or 2, it is not a good practice, of course.
Okay, Vladimir, thank you very much. And Kevin, maybe you also have something. I'm sure that you have something to share.
Yeah, about home tasks, you mean, or the tips for juniors?
Yeah, I believe in general the tips for juniors, because they always have this they always have plenty of questions. So how to get prepared, what should we know for the first interview? Because yes, I see that you mainly interview seniors or middle candidates, but still I know that there are a lot of companies in Estonia who are looking for junior or entry-level candidates. So maybe you can share something useful for them.
Yeah, the first thing that I would like to share for a junior is that nobody started as a senior, so don't worry. So your time is gonna come. So as a junior, the thing that I would pretty much prioritize, it will be to study a little bit of theory in terms of QA. Understand what is really quality assurance and how it applies to day-to-day Scrum team, but also come prepared with questions. We love to hear questions and like to ask, to answer your questions actually, because is by the level of your questions is a way that we can like measure the knowledge or your interest or the things that you're interested on doing in the company. And so come prepared with a good theory, come with questions. Also, if you can, it's good to know a little bit of programming languages. If you're aiming for like automation position. If not, if you're pretty much like into more manual stuff, I would say that you at least study a little bit about the business of the company and try to imagine a couple scenarios on a day-to-day basis. If this is going to be like, I don't know, if this is a financial company that you're going to apply, it's a business or like traveling or whatever. So if it's more like for a manual path, I would say that you try to think as a user first, and then as a QA, and try to come up with good scenarios in your head, because this is something that is really valuable. So yeah, I do believe that it's like the most 3 important tips I can share.
Great. And speaking of motivation, it's really difficult and even very complicated to measure the motivation of the candidate. But what would you recommend? How maybe they should express their motivation to an interviewer to understand that yes, they're very motivated and there will be really, really good candidates.
Primarily, I would say that if you come with a little bit of your own, like you study for yourself, you're pretty much like a self-taught. So if you have something on your sleeve already, like if you already know test and design techniques, or if you already know something about automation frameworks or stuff, you should bring that on the interview, even though like sometimes it's not asked because it's not needed. But I do believe it's really good to share what you already know by yourself without anybody teaching you, because well, the internet is right in front of you. You can learn everything with the internet. So I would say that the level of motivation that you show in an interview comes with the knowledge that you have and that you learn by yourself without having previous experience or formal training. So yeah, I would say that in terms of knowledge, like the sleeve that you have to pull up from your sleeve is pretty much being able to surprise us in terms of you know, things that you already know by yourself.
Okay, perfect. And Vladimir, probably you may something to add.
Motivation can be easily understood by the answer of candidates. So the level of the answers can easily, for me, it's easy to understand what is motivation. So if it's just general questions about company process, I see that this is just a question. But if candidates asking questions regarding how the testing process is organized, what is the team, how everything works, like candidate imagine that he will work in this company and this team, for me, it is a good sign to understand that the candidate is highly motivated, because candidate imagine that it will be, and it's probably his next job.
Okay, perfect. As I've said before, I hope that our students will notice all these useful tips and they will be very helpful for their future interviews. So I'd like to thank you very much for taking part in this first part of our public talks at Talent Learning. Yes, thank you very much for coming. And if you'd like maybe something to add, if you'd like something to share with our students, and if you have some extra useful information, yes, feel free to add. It will be amazing.
I would just like to thank you for the opportunity of being here and sharing knowledge. And hopefully in the future, we will have much more QAs in the industry and much more quality in our products.
That's great. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this session. And I think comments, this video will be open. So if someone wants to ask something additional, just feel free. And I hope we will be available to answer your questions. Thank you again.